The number of evacuees from Feodosia is increasing. The oil base in Feodosia has been burning for the fourth day after the strike by the armed forces. Windows were broken in nearby houses, and the occupying authorities have already evacuated 1,137 people. This was reported by the Telegram channel, Crimean Wind. It's been the fourth day since the oil terminal has been burning in Feodosia after the Ukrainian attack. Russian military units on the peninsula were supplied with fuel through it, in particular aviation kerosene. Now the supply will go directly from the wheels, and this complicates logistics and may disrupt the regularity of fuel supply to the military, the report said. We will remind that the fire at the Sea Oil Terminal in Feodosia, the largest in Crimea in terms of transshipment of oil products, has been going on for the second day after the strikes of Ukraine. More than 1,000 people had to be evacuated. On the night of October 7, a large-scale fire occurred at an oil depot in the Feodosia region of the temporarily occupied Crimea. This was preceded by a drone attack. As a result of the attack of the armed forces on the oil depot in Feodosia, 2 fuel tanks there were destroyed, 2 more caught fire. On the evening of October 7, explosions rang out in the temporarily occupied Feodosia for the second time in a day, and a fire started. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine confirmed the attack on a marine oil terminal in the temporarily occupied Crimea. On October 8, satellite images of the fire that continues after the Air Force hit an oil depot in occupied Feodosia appeared online. Ukraine will receive more AS-90 self-propelled guns from Britain by the end of the year. Ukrainian soldiers will receive additional AS-90 self-propelled artillery installations from Britain. Delivery is planned for this year. This was stated by the Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Rustem Umerov. I met with a great friend of Ukraine and my colleague, the Minister of Defense of Great Britain John Geely. The main topic of the meeting was the next steps to support the defense forces, both now and in the future. Great Britain acts in advance, providing our soldiers with the necessary ammunition, artillery, mortars, air defense, anti-tank mines. This is an example for other partners, because timely deliveries make it possible to destroy the enemy more effectively. By the end of the year, more AS-90 artillery systems will appear at the front. We also have good news regarding long-range weapons and robotic systems. The enemy will feel it on the battlefield, Umerov said. He also added that Britain is actively working on training and staffing our strategic reserve brigades. We agreed with John Geely to work out a list of priority needs together, which will be financed from frozen Russian assets. The key issue is investment in the Ukrainian defense industry. Britain is already involved in production, but our task is to expand these opportunities and increase production in the defense industry, the statement said. We will remind that the President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky arrived in France today, October 10, where he already met with the French leader Emmanuel Macron. The Norwegian government has decided to allocate up to 967 million kroner, approximately $87.5 million, for 4 new projects. They are aimed at increasing production capacity. The Ministry of Defense received funds from Denmark for the production of the Bodin self-propelled guns. 40.7 million euros allocated from the aid package are already in the accounts of the ministry. The General Staff named the 3 directions in which the enemy attacks the most. On October 10, more than 90 combat clashes took place at the front since the beginning of the day. The largest number was in the Lymansky, Kharkivsky and Pokrovsky directions. This was announced on Facebook by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. As the General Staff said, systematic insidious attacks by the enemy's artillery and aircraft on the border of the Sumy and Chernihiv regions do not stop. Today, areas of the settlements of Alexandria, Bilapila, Shaligin, Yelin, Klyazy, Pavlivka, Boyaro-Lezachi, Progress and Popivka were affected by enemy artillery shelling from the territory of Russia. In addition, the enemy struck the areas of Golishivsky and Richki settlements with anti-aircraft missiles, dropping a total of 5 aerial bombs. Also today, the Russians carried out 6 airstrikes on the Kursk region, using 7 aerial bombs. Today, in the Kharkiv direction, the Russian occupiers twice stormed the defense lines of the Ukrainian army in the Vovchansk region. In the Kupiansk direction, the enemy actively advanced 5 times on the positions of our units in the areas of Sinkivka, Lozova, Koliznikivka, and Stepova Novoselivka. Ukrainian soldiers are steadfastly defending. Battles are taking place in two locations. The occupier carried out airstrikes with anti-aircraft missiles on Kupiansk, Buzlovy and Podily. Today, in the Lymansky direction, the invading army carried out 21 attacks on Ukrainian positions near Druzhelubivka, Grakivka, Plashenka, Nevsky, Makivka, Novosadovo, Torsky and in Serebryansky Forest. 9 clashes have ended, 12 more are ongoing. Yampol and Lyman were hit by airstrikes with guided aerial bombs. The enemy used unguided aerial missiles in Serebryan forestry. In the Siversky direction near Verkhnyokamyansk, defenders of the Ukrainian land repelled 4 attacks by the occupying army. In the Kramatorsk direction, the invaders carried out 5 assaults on the positions of our troops near Orikovo-Vasilivka, Chasevoy Yar and Stupochki. At the moment, there is one battle going on. The situation is under control. In the Teresk direction, the number of enemy attacks increased to 4. The enemy concentrated its efforts in the area of Teresk and Sherbanivka, where the defense forces repulsed 2 attacks, and 2 skirmishes are still ongoing. The occupiers actively use aviation in this direction. In particular, the regions of Teresk and Katarinivka are bombarded. Since the beginning of the day, the enemy has already made 15 attempts to dislodge our defenders from their positions near the settlements of Selidov, Kruty Yar, Pramen, Lysivka, Myrolubivka, and Kalinov in the Pokrovsky direction. The defense forces are holding back the onslaught and have repelled 14 enemy attacks so far. Enemy losses are being refined. Fighting continues near Novozlidivka, Kremenaya Balka, Sukurini, Georgievka, Kostyantinivka, Katarinivka, and Antonivka in the Kharkiv direction. According to updated information, 9 attacks by the occupying army have been repulsed today, and 3 attacks are still ongoing. On the Vremivsky direction, the enemy is attacking in the direction of the Epiphany. 3 enemy assaults have already been repulsed by Ukrainian soldiers, 4 clashes continue. In the Orikhiv direction, the occupiers made 2 unsuccessful attempts to attack our units near Malaya Tokmachka and Robotany. Also today, enemy aviation struck Zaporizhia with 3 aerial bombs. In the Dnieper direction, the enemy tried 3 times to knock out Ukrainian soldiers from their positions. 1 battle is ongoing. We will remind you that in September, the Russian army lost an average of 1,271 people killed or seriously wounded every day in the war with Ukraine. So, the first month of autumn 2024 became the deadliest for the Russian army. During the past day, London may send troops to Ukraine to train recruits. The military leadership of Great Britain is considering the possibility of sending troops to Ukraine. They will help in the training of our recruits. This is reported by The Times. As the publication writes, plans are being discussed for small groups of British military instructors to go to western Ukraine. There, they will help provide basic training for Ukrainian recruits before they go to the front line in the east of the country. According to sources of the publication, such a decision by the British would allow solving some logistical problems associated with sending Ukrainian military personnel to British bases for training, as well as saving money. It is worth reminding that tens of thousands of Ukrainian soldiers were trained in Great Britain as part of the multinational military operation codenamed Interflex. But according to British Defence Minister John Geely, the biggest obstacle in the training of Ukrainians is Ukraine's provision of personnel for training. According to another source of the publication, sending British troops to Ukraine instead of training at military bases in Great Britain would be cheaper for and better. We could conduct training, there faster, and it would be very far from the front line, in isolated places, so the risk would be much lower, the source said. At the same time, a Ukrainian military source said that the transfer of the exercises to Ukraine will be a powerful military political signal for other countries and for Russia itself. It will also mark the beginning of the, de facto, deployment of NATO's military infrastructure on the territory of Ukraine and will become a powerful deterrent. Such a decision will also allow the British military to learn combat skills from the Ukrainian military. And it will also make it possible to test the newest weapons that are being developed for war. A Ukrainian source said they hope the British leadership would inspire France to follow suit and conduct training in Ukraine after discussions in Paris appeared to have stalled for political reasons. We will remind you that on October 10, the President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky paid a visit to London, where he held a meeting with the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Keir Starmer. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky presented details of the victory plan during a meeting with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer in London. The leaders agreed to work on its implementation together with allies. Ukrainian soldiers will receive additional AS-90 self-propelled artillery installations from Britain. Delivery is planned for this year. A Ukrainian journalist died in Russian captivity. Ukrainian journalist Victoria Roshina died in Russian captivity. She was staged to Moscow for future exchange. Petro Yatsenko, a representative of the Coordination Headquarters for the Treatment of Prisoners of War, reported this on TV, Ukrinform reports. Indeed, we have conducted internal investigations and unfortunately this information has been confirmed. We knew Victoria. In the 22nd year, she made materials at the Coordination Headquarters. Therefore, this is extremely sad news for us and for all Ukrainian journalism as well, said a representative of the Coordination Headquarters. Yatsenko noted that it is too early to talk about the circumstances of the death, appropriate work is being done to establish them. I think that in any case we will find out about these circumstances. Also, if there are those who are guilty of this, those who caused this death or destruction, then they will definitely be punished. Because such crimes do not have a statute of limitations, he said. According to the representative of the Coordination Headquarters, the work on Victoria's release from captivity was underway, and the fact that she was being transferred from Taganrog to Moscow was a stage of preparation for her release. We try to constantly remember all our servicemen, civilians, and journalists who are in Russian captivity, and the work is constantly ongoing. Unfortunately, we did not have time here, Yatsenko added. Victoria Roshina went missing on August 3, 2023, during a trip to the territories occupied by the Russian Federation. In May 2024, Russia admitted for the first time that it was holding Ukrainian journalist Victoria Roshina captive. The international organization Reporters Without Borders estimated that more than 100 Ukrainian and foreign journalists accredited in Ukraine have suffered from Russian aggression during the 2 years of full-scale war in Ukraine. The armed forces named the purpose of the Russian offensive near Kupiansk. In the near future, the occupiers in the Kupiansk direction want to reach the left bank of the Oskil River and approach Kupiansk-Buzlovoy. Yuri Fedorenko, the commander of the Battalion of Attack Unmanned Aircraft Complexes, Achilles, of the 92nd Separate Assault Brigade named after Ataman Sirk, told about this in a comment on the RBC Ukraine YouTube channel. The most difficult aspect is Kupianshina. Here, the enemy was given the task of reaching the left bank of the Oskil River in the near future, occupying a bridgehead, building up capabilities for the exit to Kupiansk-Buzlovy, Fedorenko said. According to him, if in 2023 the enemy stormed mainly landings, less often in the middle of a clear field, now the Russians are moving in waves. Now we are watching the movement of the enemy in waves. They run in a clear field from their position as close as possible to ours. One or two catch up, the next wave is coming. And so on until the assault group gathers, which then starts putting pressure on our positions, the soldier said. At the same time, Fedorenko added that today, with titanic efforts, the defense forces are close to stabilizing the situation in this area. We will remind, on October 10, since the beginning of the day, more than 90 combat clashes took place at the front. The largest number was in the Lymansky, Kharkivsky and Pokrovsky directions. During October 9, 149 combat clashes took place on the front line. The enemy pressed the most in the Kharkiv direction. In September, the Russian army lost an average of 1,271 people killed or seriously wounded every day in the war with Ukraine. So, the first month of autumn 2024 became the deadliest for the Russian army.